Imagine standing in front of a mirror that reflects back everything that you've tried to hide. Every skeleton in your closet, every insecurity, every lie, every petty manipulation. That's what it feels like to a narcissist. When someone sees through the mask, it's not embarrassment, it's exposure, it's psychological death. Most of us here have or are being abused, aka exploited by narcissists. And so we watch these YouTube videos where we can find solace in the watching, solace in the reminders that we aren't crazy and it really isn't right what they just did. And they're all the same videos. They're all saying the same thing. We're all saying the same thing. And yet still we need to hear it again and again. That's how heavy the programming is. Because even though we know that this was wrong and that was wrong and that they all say things like, I never said that or that never happened, we still haven't come to a place of radical acceptance of what is. And how can we? We're programmed. And in this programming, we become completely frozen, unable to leave because of physical reasons more often than not. But also, and majorly, we've become frozen in the mind. Frozen in the belief that we could even deserve anything better, even though our conscious mind says so. We no longer feel any type of excitement at the possibility of a new life, so much so that we never even entertain it anymore, not even a little daydream. The thought becomes, who would ever want me? Or why would I think things will be better in a new life when life hasn't shown me proof of that in the past? Not as of yet anyway. And so for a time we settle in and just walk around in a fog, zombified, just getting one foot in front of the other, dealing with one day to the other, accepting this as fate. And for those of you who are watching these same topic videos like this over and over again, the good news here is something is happening. You're actually little by little being deprogrammed, regardless of whose narcissism video channels that you're watching. And I think that's great. Programming the mind is repeating thoughts over and over again, our words. So keep watching. In time, you'll hit a wall and you'll have a, I've had it determination. Some of you are there right now and some of you not yet, but you will, at which point you'll get to radical acceptance. You're on to them. You're finally seeing that they are not worth your time. And so now you're starting to look for possibilities. You're no longer chasing cookie crumbs here, and your focus starts to shift from fear to anger, which is a great place to be for a while when moving up the emotional scale, because it'll get you to take action. Anger can really take you to action if you let it. But in between the fear and action part, because although you still haven't figured out the how to leave just yet, your anger shows and the narcissist sees it. They notice that you're no longer impressed or surprising them with kind actions. They say that narcissists have a sixth sense, but to me, I think because they're constantly on the lookout because of their paranoia, so they notice change quickly, especially when the partner suddenly doesn't respond to their need for supply. They're always on the lookout. They're not psychic like they claim to be. It's because they're watching heavily. They're paying attention. And at that point, that's where the narcissists can become dangerous. And that's where you'll need to be extra vigilant because they're going to up their game and they're not going to stop either. At the beginning, they can get quite angry, so the fits of rage will intensify. The amount of times will increase by a lot because resentment will have taken hold of them. All gloves are off and how dare you is in full force now. I mean, you don't have to tell them that you're onto them. You don't have to accuse them of anything. It's in your energy, your eyes, the way that you stop explaining yourself, the way that you start pausing before answering questions or questioning things that you used to accept without hesitation. They notice. And once the narcissist senses that shift, when they feel that the walls are closing in around the persona that they've built, they don't take it lightly. This is not just about losing control over a situation. This is existential to them. To be exposed is to die, even if the exposure only exists between you and yourself. And even if you've talked to them kindly and openly about their issue with suggestions to get proper help, They need their identity. That's like asking them to get rid of their favorite teddy bear. So let's talk about what happens when a narcissist knows that you see through them. For you, though, it's not just that you're hurt. It's not just that you're fed up. It's something deep in you that started to see them not as this misunderstood, wounded person who just needs love, but as someone calculated, manipulative, maybe even dangerous, that your perception has now changed, that the veil has dropped. Because when that happens, the dynamic changes completely. Herein lies radical acceptance, which means that you've awakened. But let's get back to the narcissist here. The crack in the mirror. Narcissists thrive off illusion. Control is one thing, but illusion is more sacred. They need to be seen a certain way. They need you to reflect back to them a version of themselves that they can stomach. Something admirable, special, powerful, and desired. Victimized when needed and righteous when it suits them. The whole identity is slippery and it's designed to meet a need in the moment for whatever purpose it needs to serve. But the second that you stop mirroring that, the second that you stop playing the role of supporter or fixer, apologizer, rescuer, or just someone who's always a little unsure of themselves, the narcissist senses it. And it feels like betrayal to them. They're not right in the head. And not because you actually betrayed them, but because you're threatening the false self. They've spent years constructing. And then when the mask begins to slip, they panic. Not always loudly. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it looks like coldness, distance, confusion. Sometimes it looks like an explosion. But make no mistake, something in them has clocked the change in you. And the game is now survival. This shift from charm to control to contempt. In the beginning, everything they did was designed to make you feel like you were the center of the world. The charm, the intensity, the late night talks where they swore up and down that no one ever understood them the way that you do. The confessions, the flattery, the trauma bonding, the constant pull into closeness and chaos. But what you might not have realized is that all of that wasn't really about you. It was about how you made them feel about themselves. Repeat that in your mind. And now you don't make them feel that way anymore because now you're seeing something else. You're noticing the contradictions, the gaslighting, the coldness behind the eyes. You're remembering things that they swore never happened. You're putting the puzzle pieces together and realizing that they always made you feel small just when you were starting to feel strong. That their honesty only came when it gave them the upper hand, that their wounds became weapons. And suddenly, the warmth that they used to pull you in is replaced with contempt. And you don't want to see contempt in a narcissist. It's not a pretty sight. And the reason for this contempt is because in their world, there's no room for someone who sees them clearly. There's no intimacy where there's no control. They can't bond with someone who sees their manipulation for what it is. So you become the enemy. When a narcissist knows that you're onto them, they'll often accuse you of being the one who's changed. And yeah, you have, but not in the way that they mean. You haven't become this cold or cruel or unloving person. You've become clear. You've stopped rationalizing their behavior. But in their eyes, this clarity is disloyalty. So they may accuse you of being manipulative, paranoid, disconnected, or distant. They'll project onto you everything that they're now feeling. Fear of abandonment, insecurity, and rage, even though they're showing you something completely different. You'll hear things like, "You're not the person I fell in love with," or "You've changed. You used to understand me. What happened to you?" The worst part is that there's a real part of them that believes this, because narcissists don't just lie to others. They lie to themselves. They literally convince themselves that their reactions are justified, that their pain is your fault, and that you're the one who turned. They may even try to punish you for it. Well, the word may is a weak word here. It's more than likely that they'll punish you. If the narcissist realizes that you truly see them, if they know that you're not buying into their facade anymore, they'll often try to regain control in subtle or explosive ways. They might use the silent treatment or sudden withdrawal, or some of them might try love bombing all over again. pulling out every tool in the box to get you back into the fog, back in the box. Or on the other end of the spectrum, they might discard you. Not because they don't care, but because they can't stand being seen. And sometimes walking away before you do it first gives them the illusion of power, even if it destroys them behind closed doors. They might also begin a smear campaign, reaching out to people to warn them about how difficult or unstable that you are, rewriting the story so that they can be the one who was wronged. And I've seen that firsthand when this couple that we had many dinners with suddenly started subtly treating me like I was unhinged somehow, very subtly. And I'm really glad I had learned about all of this when I was in my studies about studying narcissism, because I saved myself a lot of heartache. I quickly cut that out like a knife. This smear campaign, it's not about truth. It's about preservation. They are in survival mode, literally. They have to believe that they are still in control of how the story ends, particularly how they'll be viewed by others. That's the most important thing. The idea of losing you has nothing to do with heartache. How could it? They don't even have a heart to begin with. It's disgusting when you finally see the truth. Narcissists don't handle exposure well, not even internal exposure. Even when you haven't told a soul, even when the shift is entirely inside of you, that alone can trigger an identity crisis in them, a collapse of the fragile false self. Remember, shame is a big part of narcissism. And so that collapse can manifest as depression, rage, impulsivity, or even depression. And some might even stalk your social media, send cryptic messages, or suddenly act as though they never cared at all. And that rejection might come up heavy in you, but hold on to yourself. This is a journey. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. As for them, underneath that performance is fear. Because if you saw through them, others might too. And what are they without the act? Meanwhile, you're left to deal with the confusion, the fallout, the shame. You might still doubt yourself even after everything that you've realized. You might still feel guilt. And that's part of the programming. The emotional hooks they spent so long embedding in your psyche. But at some point, the clarity becomes undeniable. And when it does, you can never unsee it. There's a truth that is really hard to take. It's hard to swallow. And it's that the narcissist never actually loved you in the way that you thought. It was about possession, about image, and about how you made them feel about themselves. And the moment that you no longer served that purpose, the moment that you became a mirror that they couldn't manipulate, they had to break it off or flee from it or try to shatter your sense of reality until you believed that you were the problem all along. That's not love. When a narcissist knows that you're onto them, the game is over. But for them, the performance continues just for a new audience. You're no longer useful, not because you changed, but because you stopped pretending. You stopped playing the role that they had wanted you to play, that they assigned you to. You became a witness instead of a participant. And that's something that they just can't tolerate, because deep down, they've always known. And once you see them clearly, you're never coming back. So what does it feel like to them when they know that you've seen them clearly? Imagine standing in front of a mirror that reflects back everything that you've tried to hide. Every skeleton in your closet, every insecurity, every lie, every petty manipulation. That's what it feels like to a narcissist. When someone sees through the mask, it's not embarrassment, it's exposure. It's psychological death. Narcissists survive on control, on your confusion. So your clarity, that's war. They're going to feel cornered. They'll feel that you've just taken the steering wheel from their hands and they don't trust you to drive. Because if you're not under their spell, you are a threat. And threats must be neutralized. So what happens next? Well, they don't usually admit it. They won't say, "You're right, I've been manipulating you." That's not going to happen. The reaction is defensive, theatrical, or even cruel. They stonewall, they withdraw, they'll make you feel like you did something wrong by seeing what you saw. You're going about a day that for you is normal, and you'll bring up a valid concern, and suddenly you're getting punished with silence, coldness, or that blank look that says, you're nothing to me now. Others explode, they rage. You dare to challenge the image, so now you're the villain. They'll flip the narrative so fast you'll think you're in a completely different story. They'll accuse you of being manipulative, abusive, unstable. It's projection. And they're projecting everything onto you. It's not just deflection, it's retaliation. Some narcissists, they'll get strategic. They'll go into damage control. They'll start love bombing again, saying all the right things, putting you back into the fantasy with future faking, right? They might even admit to some minor flaw, but it's a calculated move. It's not accountability. It's manipulation diagnosed as self-awareness. Watch for that one. That's a card that I've seen. They're trying to reel you back in before you slip too far out of reach. They don't want closeness. They want control. And once you've seen that game, you can't unsee it. And that's why they panic. That's why they lash out. That's why they disappear. That's why they discard, they devalue, or suddenly seem to change. It's not about you. It's about preserving the illusion. After that point, once you see through the veil, the relationship becomes a power struggle. Even if you stay, the dynamic it's never the same, because now everything they do is a test. Can they still manipulate you? Can they still guilt you? Can they still break you down just enough for you to doubt what you saw? Sometimes they ramp up the abuse. Sometimes they vanish. Sometimes they cling. But the core of it is always the same. The mask cracked. And now they're scrambling to either fix it or punish you for noticing. And it doesn't matter if they're a romantic partner, a parent, a sibling, a boss, or a friend. When a narcissist knows that you see them, you are no longer safe in the role that they had assigned to you. You're no longer feeding the image. You've disrupted the system. So, I leave you with that. Thank you for watching, and we shall see you in the next video. Bye for now.